Hi, welcome to Adoption Now podcast, telling your adoption story on your adoption show. I'm your host, April Fallon. If you're new to Adoption Now, my husband and I are the adoptive parents of 4 beautiful children. We did try to adopt 7, though, and it was a very lonely time. We were very confused. We were asking, why is adoption so hard? And I know so many of you asked that exact same question in the process. And if you're just getting started, we want you to know that we are here to help you. We started this radio program in Denver because we didn't want people to feel the way that we were feeling. We wanted a community. And Adoption Now over the years has grown into this international podcast. And we have grown such a beautiful community of people that are here to support and help one another. It's important to tell the whole story. It's important to know the stories that are coming from adoptive parents and adoptees and birth families. It's important that we understand all of those voices as we grow together and understand things like open adoption. And we get questions all the time. Why is this so expensive? Or what are the options for help? Where do I go? Because I've gone to church and I've gone to all these different places that used to be my community and they just don't have the answers. Well, we want to find those answers for you. I want to thank you all for giving in 2024. Thank you for your donations. We are a nonprofit, and so your giving helps us tell more stories. Super excited that this is the new year. 2025 is going to be good. That's how I feel. It's just going to be amazing. And guess what? Today we have a returning guest in the studio. Darcy Olsen is the founder and CEO of the Center for the Rights of Abused Children. They help over 700, oh my gosh, this is crazy, 755,000 children. Isn't that amazing? She is the adoptive mom of 4 children. She has fostered 10. And guess what? She is the only person that has returned 3 times. Darcy, welcome to the show.
Oh, April, Happy New Year. I'm so happy to be on.
Can you believe that you have been, I need like a jacket for you. Like Saturday Night Live, people have like the 5-timer. You need a 3-timer.
I feel like a superstar. Like the New Year episode and everything. So
yes.
Thank you. I love this show. I love what you stand for. I don't even know if you know this, but I am a modest contributor to Adoption Now as well.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
I did mine through Facebook. And I think, we can all, this is just like such a wonderful way to support helping more kids. So I'm honored to be a guest. I love being a supporter and I just love you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That means a lot. You and I have become friends, right? Now
yes.
we're part of this supportive mom group where, during holidays when our kids are just getting a little bit crazy, we need each other where we just laugh at the day because it was probably not the way that we planned it.
Yeah, we have those stories where it's like, who can I tell this story to who will understand and not judge me and maybe make me laugh about this terrible thing that just happened. So it's been really wonderful. I love being able to share those with you. We've had a couple of really good ones lately,
really
too.
Funny. I know, because we are now entering into teenage years.
Yes.
And I've said this on the show before. I love teenagers. I should be a youth pastor. Like, that's how much I love teenagers. And now I have one living with me, and I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah,
I really am not.
I feel, so mine are 13, 12, 11, and 7, but 13, 12, and 11 are all in the teen stage.
Yep.
They just are. And there's so much to love about it. Right? Like we remember being teens, so we can stand in their shoes, right? And we can remember how certain things feel.
Because I feel like everything is different. Everything. We didn't have YouTube or iPhones or computers. Like, I just feel.
But we had parents worried about us.
Yes,
we had curfews. We had rules. So I can relate to that. But on the flip side, when we have some behaviors, the general friends will say, well, they're just teens. Mm-hmm. And I think, actually, I have a bipolar ADHD teen. I have high anxiety. We have some inherited and, we have traits, okay? And they're extra difficult. So I love to be honest with your listeners about what that is like and what it's like, over Thanksgiving. I had a friend over who later texted, "It was so wonderful, but I don't like the way your kids treat you." which really kind of broke my heart,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it showed that this friend didn't understand that my kids were doing the best that they could,
Mm-hmm.
and they're innocent of wrongdoing. They've got some challenges and some issues that we're working through.
I'm surprised you didn't say, I don't like the way they treat me either.
But
I agree with you. Do you want to take them for a little bit?
Yes, I did. But then I also had to sort of, defend them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I do feel like sometimes, and I wonder if your listeners feel this way, it's that expression, I'm going to put it in the nice, clean way. You're darned if you do, and you're darned if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to explain my teens and my kids to everybody. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's their private lives. But if I don't explain what some of the issues are, people think my kids are they have ill will, they have malice, they have temper tantrums, I don't know how to discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's why the adoption community is so important, because here we don't have to explain.
Mm-hmm.
We love each other's kids. We don't ask questions.
Right.
We just love them.
And we love each other.
Yeah.
That we said yes to this lifelong commitment into a world that often we were not prepared for. Like you said, there are things that are inherited through the family line that maybe we don't have in our family line that we are not familiar with. We can't ask our mom or our grandmothers because they don't understand. And so here we are trying to navigate how to parent children that are bipolar or have ADHD or have trauma or had a really rough birth and are detoxing off of drugs. We don't have that in our family, a lot of us. We don't even have that really in our community. It was very hard for me even to go to the church and say, hey, she's doing this. And everyone would say, oh, that's just so normal. And I'm like, no, but I don't think it is. I think this is part of her kind of detoxing. And what can I do to help strengthen her? And like you said, you might not find it in the day-to-day people and community that you were in before adoption.
The new community becomes so important.
Mm-hmm.
And you do, unfortunately, I feel like in order to protect your children from this judgment that people have, sometimes you have to let some of those relationships go. Mm-hmm. and fall to the wayside. Yep. And even family members. I mean, in my case, some of my family members were the most critical. Mm-hmm. Because I come from a family where your willpower gets you through anything. Right? We're fighters. Right. We get scholarships.
And discipline.
We work hard. Mm-hmm. We wake up early. We get it done, right? Well, that's executive function. Mm-hmm. And we've got it. And we've got it in spades. And I love that. And it's great. But guess what? Not everyone is born with that. And for some of the kids, and some of my kids in particular, their willpower isn't going to really get them anywhere.
Right.
And it's a very, they function in different ways. And so rewards are different. Learning is very different for my children. And of course, this can happen with a biological child too. It is more common in my case, when you foster and then adopt, because we know that things like bipolar and ADHD are more often, they're inheritable traits, but they also can be delivered through the drug use and the drug exposure in utero. So they're more common in this community.
Well, I have a crazy story for you, and then I want to hear your crazy stories. And I have a million. I was just thinking about you today because we are here in Phoenix, which I came here and I'm like, I just have to do this in the studio because I love seeing you face to face. And so here we are, we're traveling, and I brought my youngest, who's African American, and we're waiting in this line, and they're checking everybody in. There are people traveling with their children. And then we go up, and of course they see me and my African American child, and they're like, who is this? They point to me, they're talking to her. And she looks up at me and she goes, well, this is April Fallon. And I'm like, not the time, Malia. And he goes, oh, okay. Well, who is this to you? And she's just kind of looking at him like, what? And I'm thinking, say mom. Right? Don't make this look like a kidnapping. And she finally gets it. She's like, oh, my mom, like, why are you asking me that? And he's like, okay, great. You passed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we walk away. He didn't do that to anyone else in the entire line. He didn't ask any of those kids, right? That's just our life because we're an interracial family. We're always kind of explaining things. And so I was thinking about you because I told you that. She says, oh, you're April Fallon, right? It's so funny to me.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So we had this situation happen. I think one of the hardest things that parents often say is not that we aren't in it to win it, not that we don't want healing. We want healing for our child. A lot of us have come to terms with we didn't adopt what, the perfect family would look like. We understand that we're going to be looking messy, right? And we know that we're going to be going to different appointments. We know that we're going to be at the school more. I mean, we have really succumbed to this is our life. I find that people in our position are there. It's just oftentimes, where do I go, though? I know I need a counselor. I don't know how to find, an adoption competent therapist. I don't really know where to go. Well, one of the things that people struggle with is really IEPs. A lot of us have not had them as children. We have not sat in meetings. We don't even know what to ask or what to say. And so we had the situation where we lived in Arizona, which we had our kids in a school that was amazing. And they were supportive. And when the doctor, everybody was working together in this particular school. So the doctor would send over whatever the doctor was saying, and then the people in the school would read it, and then they would put it into the IEP, and we'd have a meeting, and then it would work and happen. We moved to Colorado, and it's nothing like that. And so we have this lady, you're smiling at me, and this is not a funny story. I wish it was going to end funny.
I'm smiling in part because I'm wondering if all the listeners even know what an IEP is yet.
Right.
It's basically when you find out that your child has learning differences and they need what in old school, for my generation, called special ed.
Right. Which they still call it sped ed.
Which is bizarre. So IEP just means individualized education plan. Mm-hmm. So what you're trying to do is get your kids the education that they need and the help that's required under federal law. And that's all. That's why I was smiling, because I'm thinking, you know what? Half the parents know, and half of them are like, what is this thing?
Right. And it's kind of an uphill battle to get that into place. But we had it from Arizona, and so they had to honor it. And we're sitting there, and the lady who's head of the IEP says, we need to retest Lily to see if she still qualifies. And I about lost my mind, because I'm like, what do you mean still qualifies? And she's like, well, I'm just looking at her. And you know what? It just doesn't seem like her ADHD would stop her from her education. I'm not sure that has anything to do with it. Who are you? Why are you saying this? You don't know our history. You don't know how hard I've worked. I could feel like myself just completely melting down to think that I would have to start over from ground zero.
Yes.
And that I would have to prove to her. So I talked to the psychiatrist, and she said, and by the way, you take your kids to a psychiatrist these days.
Yes.
Which, when we were growing up, you were in a straitjacket. That's not even something you would do. You don't take kids to a psychiatrist. Well, now lots of pediatricians don't want to deal with medication, and they send you to a psychiatrist. It's not as scary as it sounds. So I talked to her, and she said, well, if you lose this because like her medication is working and she looks like she's doing a great job, and plus Lily's a great masker, she can fool anybody, you might have to just take her off meds and send her to school. I just want to say, if anybody suggests that, don't do that, because I did. Because I thought there's no way that they're going to think that she needs help because they're seeing her on the other end after all the treatment, right?
Yes.
And so what if she loses the help? Then I'm panicked. So I sent her to school for a week without her medication. By Thursday, they were calling us and they're like, please put her back on. But what it did for her was terrible. She
awful.
Went backwards.
It doesn't always manifest in hyperactivity, which is what apparently this special education expert thought. In fact, that's, for a lot of kids, that's not even one of the ways that you see it. It's more of the brain is a ping pong ball.
Exactly.
It's a difficulty in emotional self-regulation. And if you read about it honestly, you will understand that it is not something that goes away.
Right.
Right? You have to work around it. You work with it. You learn to live with it like any other difference that you have if you don't have an arm. You learn how to live. You don't, right? It's not going to grow back. And I feel like many of these conversations that at least at the agency level from the government, when they're talking about these children who have been drug exposed, I mean, those are most of the kids who are entering the foster care system. I think there are many of the ones who do go up for adoption. They're not being honest about the consequences of drug exposure. Yes. There is brain damage. It is lasting. If your baby was soaked in meth in utero, there will be consequences.
Right.
And if you know that, you can be better prepared. And the reason why do we see a psychiatrist? Well, by the time my child was 6, I had so many behaviors on my hands. And I don't want to go into them all to protect her privacy, but I didn't know what was going on. And one of the first things was, he said, what about the sleep? And I said, what do you mean sleep? She's never, this child's never. Okay, it turns out this is a big consequence for a lot of these kids. They have trouble sleeping. And of course, if you don't sleep or eat right, you've got some behaviors, just that. And a pediatrician, I mean, it's not melatonin that they need, right? It's not a gummy.
Right.
It's something therapeutic that will really help them. And some of them need it just to get to sleep. Some of them need it to stay asleep. So being honest and then helping to educate the educators about this is super important. I've got a story for you on my IEP that I was pretty outraged. Okay. So
I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
Is that advocacy is really, really important. And there are advocates that you can hire to come with you. They are professionals at IEPs. They come and they know what to ask. They know what to say. Absolutely not. You're not taking that off when you don't know what to do because you've not been in the situation. And so if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm all alone, you can find an advocate to go with you. Oh, it's almost like hiring an attorney.
You do. Yeah. I mean, it's critical. So under federal law, every school, unless they're private, so a charter or a regular public school has to do the best they can to accommodate learning differences. And almost every single school fights it because it costs money. We get it. We know it costs money. Well, I'm sorry, but it is the law. And if you are a parent and you have a school that doesn't want to hear you, doesn't want to accept the testing, there are attorneys who specialize in this, and some of them will even do pro bono work. I know a pro bono attorney who actually ended up adopting a 17-year-old who she was helping with his education plan. So get the help you need so you can get that support in school. So I have 3 who have special education plans, 3 of my 4. And it's not my first rodeo. So my 3rd kid is going through the same school. And I kind of blew up in my last special ed meeting. And I said, look, he's in 2nd grade. He can't read. He can't write. He can't do math. And this is like my other 2 kids have moved. And you're not going to fail this one. And they said to me, well, do you think Montessori is for your child? And I said, I think the federal law is for my child.
Right.
And you, the school, need to figure it out. Just because the child is not in a wheelchair doesn't mean the child doesn't deserve the same helps as someone with a physical disability. So get on it. And then, of course, I felt bad. I still haven't apologized. Because I'm so indignant on behalf of my child, but I do need to apologize for not for what I said, but for the way I said it. I could have been a bit gentler. And then, of course, the older kids, every night now, we created a library for this child. We were working on reading and writing at home, but the schools have 8 hours. And so they need to do that job and they need to do it well. And you need to fight for it.
You have to fight for it. And it's an uncomfortable feeling to make everybody mad. You're thinking, if I yell at everyone, are they going to be mean to my child? Like, will they like my child less? And now I feel like I walk into school and they're all like, oh, there's April. And I'm like trying to be so nice, because I really am a nice person.
I know,
but you're not doing your job and you're making me an angry person.
Someone I work with told me the truth. She's like, sometimes you're just a bulldog. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's true, right? It's Sarah Palin said that when she came out in an announcement speech years and years ago when she ran, and right, wasn't that the joke? Like, what's the difference, like between a hockey mom?
Oh yeah,
and what was it? A hockey mom and a grizzly bear or something like that. And she's like, lipstick.
Oh no, I do not remember that.
I just remember
she was
that's a
hockey
reality.
mom.
Like we go in there and we fight.
Yeah.
And they need us to be
But
fighters.
sometimes we don't know what we're fighting. I remember going in there and feeling like I don't know what to say. And you're looking at, they have it up there, the whole entire IEP, and you're looking at the screen. And you're like, I don't like this, and I don't know why, but I'll be back, because you're not sure if. And one thing they do is they try to tell you your child worked out of this goal, right?
Yes.
Be very careful with terminology like that. Some of it is great. They met their goal. Some of it is they're saying, now we're going to reduce the reading help that they have right now, and they actually need it. And the reason why they're hitting their goals is because they have that. Right?
100%.
And then they take it away and you're like, what? We're not hitting anything.
Right. Then you take away the tutoring and suddenly they're again a year behind their peers or
Yes.
3 or 4, which of course then they feel left out and they feel different. And by age 7 or 8, they know they're different.
Right.
And that isn't right. And that's why this law was in part was passed to make all kids feel included. And I said to the teacher, look, as drug use rises in our country, and it is on the rise for the hard drugs, you will see more and more of these children. I mean, you've seen pregnant women on the street corners. Where do you think their children go? I mean, they go to school at some point, whether in those family or another. And I said to the whole team, and I had the principal, the school director, everybody, and I said, it's not just me. You need to prepare because in our community, you've got thousands more of these kids coming, and they are going to be coming at you, and you need to find a way to get the resources that you need. I am just the canary in the coal mine. I'm telling you, they're coming.
You have so many metaphors today.
I love the good metaphors.
Sarah Palin,
if I can remember them. That's the problem. You could start with one, and at this age, you forget.
You're like, I don't know. My husband always says, the squeaky wheel gets the cheese. What? Then he'll stop and he goes, no, wait, do they get cheese? Wait, is it a wheel? And I'm like, just don't use that anymore.
Yeah, stop. Honey, stop.
Not right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree that you just keep showing up and you really need to advocate. And for some of us, it can be time consuming. It's frustrating, but you really do want to see your child succeed. And I know there are families out there that have adopted a child that have been drug exposed, and you want to pretend that didn't happen, and that is doing your child a great disservice. It did happen. And I tell families all the time in post-adoption counseling, the brain is looking for something. It has already been exposed to a drug that should not have been in their system, and the brain is looking, and it can't calm down, right? And so in their minds, they can't handle emotions. They're crying all the time. They're frustrated. They're lashing out. And they can't even work because they can't calm down enough to even think about reading, right? And so we have to be able to get them what they need, because I'll tell you what my daughter's birth mother said to me. She said, if you don't treat her, she will find a way to treat herself. She will self-medicate. She will go to other street drugs. She will figure it out. But you don't want her to do that at 17, 18. You want her to be able to calm the brain down, learn all of that cognitive learning and behavior that they need. And yes, it's always going to be a struggle, but Lily cannot survive off of medication. She cannot. Some ADHD children, they can still survive. They don't get anything done. Yeah. They're messy or whatever. But there are some children that it's their lifeline. They can't function at all.
Well, there's a difference between what I think a lot of people think ADHD is, which is just sort of hyperactivity, like the 7-year-old boy who's running around the room. And a lot of that is getting out the energy. But a lot of it is an inability to regulate the emotions. And part of that, from what I read, is that it's because when this little baby is in utero and it's being exposed to meth, it's holding on to all the vitamins it can get to develop, to pop out the limbs, the fingers, the toes, the heart. And the very last part to form of the brain is executive function. So sometimes it doesn't get formed properly. And that's why, and that's where this comes from. So, but going back to when you were talking about teenagers, one of the upsides I have found with a teen with bipolar plus ADHD and just a whole slate of behaviors that are very challenging is because she's 13 now, we can talk about this.
Yes.
And she wants to fix it. Okay. She doesn't want to be the kid who is crying or lashing out in anger or unreliable or causing mom to cry. And she that self-awareness and that which comes around that age to be accepted by your peers and be accepted by that wider community helps to create, in this case, something positive, which is a self-awareness and a desire to behave in ways that are more acceptable. So for a lot of kids, peer pressure is a really bad thing. And in my household, that has actually helped her tremendously to go, oh, this is why this is so important.
I think turning a lot of these negative things into positive things is such a gift. And honestly, it's not myself leading it. It's also my 11, because your oldest daughter is like my 11-year-old. She turns negative things into a positive all the time. And I'm amazed by her. You know, what she lacks in executive function, she gains in her awareness, in just her intuition, in her wise conversation about the way kids act or how she should be acting. I'm amazed at her daily. And it makes me sad often that the school is just looking at academics, right? I mean, even my girls did a run. They did a Girls on the Run. And all these girls got together to run a 5K, right? All these different schools. Well, my daughter won first place. Amazing, right?
Amazing.
But they didn't celebrate it because everybody got a medal, because everybody ran. I get that. But this girl struggles so much in academics and so much in school. We couldn't celebrate that she got first place, that she is an incredible runner. I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me, is that we're only looking at academics. Why don't we look at the fact that, you know, my daughter is nice and caring to people. And let's look at these things and also celebrate those things. And not every kid has the same gift. We kind of normalize like everybody is getting one big medal.
And well, that's a whole conversation we can get into, right? Like nothing is earned. We all just get stuff, you know.
Right.
That creates problems. But I'll say the same thing about my 13-year-old. So I'm talking about all these problems that she's got, and she knows I talk about it, right? She knows what I do. She wants to take over for me one day. But she is in a private school now, thanks to the amazing school choice programs that we have here in Arizona. This school looks at lots of things, including sports, all sorts of things. Well, they have a civics council, and she was elected Speaker of the House because that girl is bold. Mm-hmm. She is a leader, and sometimes that inability to self-regulate leads to her saying things that other students don't dare say, and they love her for it. So I told her, you know, you have leadership abilities. This is incredible, right? Meantime, one of the other children has social anxiety. So so she's like following behind, like hold my hand. And so I love this. And I think moms and dads, I see grandparents do this. I see neighbors do this when they meet your child. The good people, right? They might see a misbehavior, but they're the people who always find something to point out that's amazing. And it could be, oh my gosh, your smile just lit up my heart, you know, or, oh my goodness, I love how loud you are. I wish I could be that loud when I'm teaching in my classroom because everybody would listen. I mean, we can praise these different aspects of our children, and between, you know, our hard work. And I think at core, you know, I'm a believer. God gives everyone talents and everyone a way to succeed, to participate, to contribute. My son is a great soccer player right now. Okay. 4 goals in a row. Like he's that kid, that one, right? He's the one, all the dads are jealous. And I'm like, yeah, that's my boy. But I told him, you know, we don't always know if your body's going to function this way, and God's given you a great gift, so let's work on it. And the other day, I saw an incredible picture of somebody who had lost a leg in an Olympic competition of soccer, kicking the ball with his other leg, jumping midair. So one leg gone and playing soccer. And I sent that to my son. And I said, this is what it means to persist. When you have a goal and you love something,
yes,
you can still find a way to achieve. And I think it's our job to encourage, to see the best and help them be their very, very best.
See, you were right when you said that that's why these children are with you. Even though you don't love that saying, but it's so true, because I think about even Lily, and I think about how she is inspired by the person that I am. And we are very different, very different. But she has this like tenacity, right? She's watching me all the time. She's watching me with children. She's watching me with people. And it's like she needed somebody to be that role model for her, because she could achieve more when she's watching you achieve, right? Your daughter is doing that. She wouldn't even probably have these goals if you weren't her mom. And I just recently talked to my daughter's birth mom for the first time in many, many years. And that's exactly what she said to me. She said, I do not regret one day that I placed her with you, because you were always her mom, which is a huge thing for somebody to say. But she said, because you are going to make her go further than I could have ever taken her, than anyone in my family could have ever taken her. And, I think a lot about Lily because we aren't the same. AJ and I, we are cut from the same cloth, but her and I are not. She's way more introverted. And I just thought, what a huge honor that she would say that to me. But also, deep down in there, that's true. Even though I struggle and it's like, it's hard and you want to pull your hair out. It's like, she wouldn't have had that stability and that person that, she can say, I want to achieve that. I want to do this. I'm inspired by, and it might look different than what I'm doing, but still, like, I can see God's plan as you talk. Yes. Right. And I'm sure you feel that way also when you look at other families.
And I love your bio mom for having the grace and the love to say something so warm.
Yeah.
I have, I know this is not like bio mom episode, but I happen to have 2 of my 4 who have come into our lives at different points. And they both have so much love and grace, and they have self-forgiveness in their cases. And I have like, they think we're important. Mm-hmm. I look at them and I marvel, because I don't think I would ever have the ability to say, what, I'm glad my child is with you.
Yes.
I wasn't prepared when my child came. And in my case, their hearts are enormous, and you should see our exchanges. Like, I'm like, you're my sister, and they're like, no, you're my sister. And I'm like, I thank God, every day for you giving this child life when you knew you were probably not going to be able to keep this child. And they say, I thank God every day that you were there. And it's like, for those bio moms that we get like that. And I think they probably feel the same for the adoptive moms who are warm and love them the same, truly genuinely love them. We're really, really fortunate.
It's a really beautiful thing. I thought that was the best compliment I had ever gotten, that she said that not for a day in her life did she regret placing her with me. It's like, that's such a huge honor and hard to say. You're right. Hard to really honestly say that. I truly believe the same thing, is that not only am I blessed to have Lily in my life, I'm also really blessed to have her mom, because when I see her achieve, I know how hard she had to fight to achieve anything that was so simple. Her life had so many stumbling blocks. And you or I, if we had those in our lives, I don't know that we would be any different, right? The things that happened to her are just horrible, and that she just keeps going and she keeps trying, and that she was digging really deep to say something so kind and gracious to me. I'm like, you are an incredible person.
One of my very favorite things to do now that I have both these 2 is when I have like when my oldest was elected, to lead civic council, like as Speaker of the House or whatever the title was, the first person I wanted to tell was her bio mom.
Aw.
Because I feel like she, besides me, is the person who loves her the most.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she doesn't get to see her every day, she doesn't want to be her mom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like in that sense. But to be able to share the joys and the triumphs with someone else who truly loves that child. And I'll tell you, I had a moment. So when I went to pick up my first foster baby, I didn't know anything about any of this at all. I just had answered the social worker's call to take a baby. And I went to a hospital, and there was a little chapel, and I went in because I was early, and I just started praying. And I was just crying because I was single, and I was afraid, like, how am I going to do this? And what does this mean? And I remember praying for this birth mom who I didn't know anything about. And I just thought, what a loss this person has just had. And when I finally got to meet her, it was like 11 years later. And I had been praying for her the whole time that one day she would know this child, that she would know how healthy she was and how much joy she'd brought and how loved she was. When I met her, I just threw my arms around her, and she did to me too. And we just cried. We just cried. I'm so grateful for her, and she's grateful for me. And, we are God's sisters. We don't understand it. That's what we call it. And someday maybe we'll have a better understanding. But for now, we just have deep gratitude. Now, I will also say, I am not a supporter of open adoption.
I know.
We
differ here.
And for very good reason.
We come from two different, the backgrounds of foster versus private infant adoption.
Very different. I had a
Placing
child.
a baby and losing rights are two different
totally,
stories.
If you're born to to someone who was trafficked, you may not want to know that that's how you were born.
Right.
And certainly, I am not wanting to introduce my child to that person or that child to that person. And I had several cases where, the children I fostered, it would either be too dangerous or too hurtful for them to know, period.
Right.
End of story. And someone has to make that call, and
Somebody
that call
does.
is the mother.
Yep.
So, but we can talk about that. Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah. And then I want to tell you a successful story.
Okay.
Because here's what I love about Darcy. Here's what I love about Rita. Here's what I love about these women that are amazing, that are coming into our community and we're becoming a part of their communities, is that they are solution-based. Find a community where people understand you and you get together and you laugh and you talk about the hard things and you cry together. But at the end of the day, we are all solution-based.
Yes.
We want you to find the answers. We want that for you. If you're in a group right now where it's just a bunch of people that are mad and angry, and every time you leave that group, you're like, it was just so heavy. Like, we laughed at some things, but like nobody ever gets any better. Nobody ever comes to the table and says a success story in the midst of chaos. That's not the group you want. Get into a life-giving foster adoption group. I can't emphasize that enough. If you can't find it, come join ours. Yes.
Find us. I can tell you, I answer any email. Like, it may not be right away. I will answer any DM I get. If you come into my inbox, if you're a mom and I will answer. Okay. I just have a funny story about, so we all have our genetic traits, right? But I have long said, and I said this before I adopted, and I believe it today, that the traits that our children have, the most important things about who we become and who we are, those are the things that we teach our children, right? Character, integrity, all of those things. And my son, the soccer player, so one of the things I said, he really wants a scholarship one day, and but he's only in 7th grade, so right, like we don't know, right? But he is very strong and he's playing really well. And I said, well, listen, I want you to be thinking about other things. I want you to have some backup plans. Ballet dancers get injured, et cetera. Just being a mom, right? Got to have a lot of options on the table, whatever. And I said, and also I want to let you know, you're probably not going to get much past 5'8". Like, this is probably it for you. And he said, Mom, that's totally okay. I just kind of looked at him and I was like, okay. He's like, Mom, I identify as 6'2".
That's right.
And I was like, boy, so confidence,
I
right?
love
Confidence.
that.
How cute is
So
that?
cute.
And I love that. And that confidence comes from his teammates, his coach, his sisters. And I love that because you know what? He is not 6'2". But he feels like a powerhouse, and that's going to help him feeling strong, knowing it's going to help him go and go as far as he possibly can.
Absolutely.
He's not going to give up on himself, right? Because he believes in himself. And that's a gift that the family and the culture around, that is something we can give our children. So for all of the horror stories, and we tell you, you got to work around this or work around that. I think those qualities, and faith is another one I hope my children will have, but the characteristics that make us good friends: integrity, honesty, warmth. My littlest one, I mean, he can be a terrorist, but I'm telling you, someone walks in that house and he pulls 5 snacks out and 3 drinks off the counter and says, what can I get for you? That's something.
Why are we not going to Disney?
Because
our children need to meet.
I am a fail. I am a loser, April.
You are not a loser. She
April,
was in a competition where she was trying to win.
We're going to do it next year.
We're going to do it next year, and we're going to go.
We're going to do it together. We should do it together.
Yes.
We should both run.
Yes.
And then we can group run. Okay, we have a plan.
Yes.
People just wait
Please
for it.
help
It's
us
going to
get
be worth
to
waiting
Disney.
for. Yeah.
Yes,
we
we'll
need
see
to get
how
to
that is.
Disney.
Because we've got,
a lot
you
of
and I
children.
have a lot of, I think your 4 are very similar to my 4, maybe different ages matched up, but still we have those personalities.
They
and
vibe on the same levels.
Yes. And we too, as much as we say how difficult things are and really navigating through some of the things that, they were handed at birth because of, what happened in utero. There are so many victories, and we have found the answers, right? We have been seeking and didn't know where to go. And all of a sudden the answer did come. I have never asked God for an answer and he has turned his back on me. Never. He is always hearing my prayers. He is always sending me somebody that has the answer, and they come in many different forms. And I gotta tell the story about AJ because you will all love this. So he's definitely getting into teenage years. And AJ is literally, he could have been the poster child for adoption. He is so wonderful. He is kind and funny and outgoing, and everybody loves to watch him. And people would be like, because of AJ, I'm inspired. I mean, he's just that type of kid. Well, now he's a teenager and he's a little moody, which is really weird for me because I'm like, what is your deal? Why do you look like you hate me?
Were you like, you're the only one I had?
Yes, you and I are the same. And then my mom has to say, hey, just to remind you, you weren't that great of a teenager. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. And she's like, ha ha. But so AJ works really hard, and he was doing the VBS videos for a group, and he saved all of his money. And he got into jazz band. He's an excellent kid with music, really any instrument. And he was like, I want to play the trumpet. And I'm like, you're not playing the trumpet. If you're going to be in...
Oh, come on. I played the trumpet.
No, I can't.
Oh.
Because what do you still play it?
Are you canceling
me? Is it
me?
useful to you right now
I would
in
play
life?
it if I had one.
Well, nobody's like, I'd like some...
I didn't make it with all my cross-country moves or to college.
Rarely bands are like, hey, I need a trumpet player.
You know what? Trumpet is amazing. So bring back the trumpet. What else
I said
can you,
no
with
to the
3
trumpet.
buttons, can you hit every note there is?
I don't want that trumpet in my house. Sorry.
We have a difference,
kill the trumpet.
you and I.
So I said you can do the drums because that way if he's going to drop out, it didn't cost us a lot of money.
The drums, that's like the loudest, most obnoxious toy to have in the house.
Everybody wants a drummer. Think of how, when's the last time?
I lost the cymbals.
Yeah. My goodness.
Just disappeared.
I think everybody's going to agree with me. We should do a vote. Can you take the drums into your whole life? Yes. Can you take the trumpet into your whole life?
Oh my gosh, you can trumpet at a funeral or a wedding and be that person. I love that. That is cool.
Well, I want to see you.
A modern rock
at
band.
my funeral.
Trumpet.
If I die before you, can you please bring that trumpet to my funeral?
Okay, you know what?
This is on.
You have my word.
Perfect.
You have my word.
Okay, so he's a drummer. And he's made all his money.
If you play the drums at mine.
I'll have AJ do it. I don't play it. I was the clarinet, and he didn't want to play the clarinet, so I was thankful. Okay, so he saves up all this money, and he struggles in a lot of areas. I know a lot of middle schoolers right now, parents are like, every time I log in, this kid has incomplete assignments and they're like, oh, I turned it in. The
April,
teachers,
I don't even log in.
Yeah, well, you're doing the right thing because you'll just pull your hair out and it's just been so hard. And so I told him, if you're going to be in jazz band and you want to buy a drum set, you're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, that's what I want to spend my money on. So we go down to Denver to this like kind of shady place. And I'm like, we're either going to get a drum set or be murdered. So we get, Lily goes, I have a rock in my pocket. I'm prepared. Because she's the one that's
Lily.
Prepared with anxiety. I've got rocks in my pocket.
Yep.
We're going to survive. So we go down there and I meet this guy who's like 6'2". His whole house is filled with drum kits. I mean, it was really crazy. And I said, so are you a drummer? And he says, no. And I'm like, ha ha. And he's like, no, I'm really not a drummer. And I'm like, you're not a drummer, but you sell all these. He's like, yeah, I do guitar, but my daughter, he tells me this inspiring story of how he gets started. But he looks at AJ, and he says to AJ, he's like, you're tall and you're going to get taller. AJ is the shortest person in his class. So all of a sudden, AJ stood a little bit taller, just like you. Like he started to believe it. And this kid was like, I want to see you on the drums. I'm going to help you. And he's looking at us and he's like, all these parents, buying their kids these expensive drum kits and they don't even play them, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm going to sell him like a cheaper one, but it's going to be nice. And then he's looking, and I said, well, pick yours. And he's like, oh, you're letting him pick? I said, because he's paying for it. And his whole demeanor changed. He was like, he's paying for it? How did he save up? How did you make that much money? And AJ said, well, I was doing these videos and voiceovers. And he was like, I will charge you less. And he looked at us. And this guy who's rough, says, you guys are doing a great job. He's like, rarely do I have a kid in here that has saved up his money, that has a passion. And he's like, you're going to change lives. This is not a Christian. That he looks at AJ. He's like, you're going to change lives. This is it, man. You saved up. You're doing this. He gave sold him this beautiful drum set. And AJ's doing really, really good. But for all the parenting fails and for all the things that we are trying to do and all the time, for a moment, I was like, we did something right.
You did that.
We did something right.
That is
we
one
taught
of those qualities.
them.
Not only did you teach him to save money, right? Like that's the end game. He saves money. You taught him to persevere, to set a goal, to dream for himself, to pick something he loved, right? And to go after it. So it wasn't just one thing. Like all of these traits you guys have instilled. Right?
Right. It was right. Like all this thing that we've been working for and fighting with him.
Yes.
It was like in this moment.
Even though it should have been a trumpet.
So funny. I want to encourage you. You have to find friends that are in it with you, that will make you laugh and that will celebrate these big things. Because for a 14-year-old that struggles in school so much, to then have a win when it comes to jazz band and drums, and this guy that was off the street just telling him how great, he is and how we're great parents. Everybody needs to be told that. If you have friends right now that are struggling, look for something to not only encourage the child, but call them and tell them they're great parents. Tell them that they're doing a great job. I have families all the time write in and say, I don't want to put my child on meds. This is not what I envisioned. I don't want to do this. I want to pray and it'll be better. And they have to do it. You're doing a great job.
Yes.
You're doing what your child needs and you're showing up.
And you know what? My dad, I'm so glad I still have my dad. My dad is 83 and he is my number one source of support. And he always says to me, because he's the one I call crying, right? Mm-hmm. Or you, April, you get a text. Dad, it's been a really rough day. This is what happened, And he said, Darcy, you're doing the best you can do. And that is all you can do. And I think that's advice that I give to my girlfriends. There's not one of us, there's not one mom, there's not one dad who isn't doing the best that they can do.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm not saying, of course, there are terrible parents out there, but I'm saying in general, we all are doing the best we can do. So yeah, tell somebody, not only are you doing a great job, you're doing the very best that you can do. And that's all you can ask of yourself. Mm-hmm. We envisioned, I was a bright student. My brother was salutatorian, and I was like the dumb one in the family, right? But everybody was doing well. And I thought I would have kids that were naturally obedient, that wanted to do well in school, that loved school, and all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't get that. And, how you have to drop the expectation that of what you thought parenting was going to look like and enjoy the children that you got and the way that they need to be parented, and not be ashamed of it or ashamed of them or anything else. Like, this is a beautiful journey, and I am grateful for the kids I've had. And I understand, somebody once said to me, you will never be whole until you are a parent. And I was so offended by that because I was single and I didn't think I was going to ever be able to be a parent. And a lot of people aren't parents and they're wonderful. But I interpret that at this point in my life as saying that I have learned and developed so much patience and grace and humility and qualities that I did not have. And I only got them through being a parent to these children. And I am very thankful for that.
I agree with you. We could end right there. I mean, I could talk to you all day long. This could be the longest podcast ever, but we do have to eventually go. I do want to say that meeting you has caused me to feel more powerful. And I'll tell you why. I have a lot of people come to me and they tell me stories about children in foster care that are staying with them that they thought they were going to adopt, or things that have happened with birth families that, and we're talking about in foster care, but the birth family is not going to pull it together. And these children go back and forth and there's all this pain. And I used to listen and my heart would break and I just didn't have an answer. And I just want to tell you that now I have an answer. Now I can send them to the Center for the Rights of Abused Children and say, there is an advocate for your child. There is somebody that will go with you and advocate for that child in court. And that has changed. I just love you, because that has changed so many conversations for people. They're like, what do you mean? I said, do you know that child doesn't have anyone representing you? You go there, they're representing you or the birth family. And it's you two against each other. And who's talking for them? What do they want? And they're like, really? And I give them your information. I'm like, you just got to call her. They will figure out a way to help you. And if you're in that situation right now, and maybe you're thinking, gosh, my biggest problem is just finalization. Like, you guys are talking about showing up to IEPs, and I want to be able to be that parent, but I am in limbo, and I have been in limbo for years, and this child is being affected. And every time they go back to see their family and they come back, it's more trauma and they're triggered and our whole life is upside down. Please help me get to the place where you guys are. Where I know forever.
I'm so glad you said that, April, because I had been that foster parent and saw my child with no attorney and no one to put their rights before the court. So I founded the center, 7 years ago with a baby in my lap and a bunch of kids. And we have a pro bono children's law clinic that is there to help the kids who are in the worst situations. There are a couple of states where they have attorneys. We also work to change the laws. But there is a place on our website, thecenterforchildren.org. We are not the group in San Diego, so if that pops up, that's not us. But you can find me and you can find us, and you can put a confidential inquiry right through the website. It's another foster adopt mom who sees every single one of those inquiries that comes in. You will always get an answer. And if we can't directly help you, 99.9% of the time can get you to somebody who can. So we know you could have had a kid in your home for 4 or 5 years and still there's no TPR, or there's no severance, or they're separating the siblings. We just had a case where we got siblings back together and got them to their aunt. They actually had an aunt who had wanted them. Sometimes it's not just the foster families. It can also be the biological families who aren't able to get these kids just because of the bureaucracy. So we are there to help. We are there to fight, and we are there to listen to the problems and put solutions on the table. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So I got plenty of time to hear from you.
I love having you on the show. Please come back. Let's just do this all the time. Let's just talk all the time. This is the best.
You with your Red Bull, me with some Starbucks.
Right. And you need to come to Denver.
I must come to Denver.
You must come to Denver. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening. We will see you next episode.
The Adoption Now podcast has been telling adoption stories for nearly a decade, and now's the time to dig a little deeper. Looking for behind-the-scenes content, bonus time with the Fallon family, a network of hundreds of others in the adoption triad, and a chance to influence the content you hear on the show? Join the Patreon community at patreon.com/adoptionnow. Did you know that we also offer one-on-one coaching sessions? Let us help you navigate the early steps or support you post-placement by joining the interest list on our website. And did this episode make an impact on you? Don't forget to share some love. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Adoption Now. See you next episode.
At the end of the day, I choose you.